Member for Albany.
I rise today to raise a grievance with the Minister for Culture and the Arts regarding an iconic Albany site, Strawberry Hill Farm, Barmup. I thank the Minister for taking my grievance and for the opportunity to bring to the attention of the House the much-needed restoration and repairs at this important cultural heritage site on Menang Noongar country. The site is significant as an important campsite for the Menang people and a place of close and ongoing contact between Menang people and the European settlers. It is the site of the first colonial farm to be established in what was to later become West Australia, in close proximity to the present-day Albany CBD. Established in 1827, Barmup Strawberry Hill Farm features historic buildings dating from the mid-1930s in a relatively intact cultural landscape setting. The site is included on both the State Register of Heritage Places and Aboriginal Site Register. A new visitor centre hub completed in 2020 has increased visitor numbers and improved the visitor experience at Strawberry Hill. However, there remain some serious problems that need to be addressed at the property in relation to the site, infrastructure and the conditions of the historical buildings. The two-storey stone house on the site is a rare example of the old colonial Georgian architecture, while the nearby cottages is a rare example of an abode farmer's work cottage. The grounds of Strawberry Hill contains examples of the earliest European planting in Western Australia. The National Trust of Western Australia has conserved and made the place the first property acquired by the Trust accessible to public since 1964. All of the northern portions of the land under National Trust management is an Aboriginal heritage site. The elevated position of the site and the existence of the permanent water meant that the site was used as a meeting place for ceremonies by the Menang people. The campsite on the travelling route used by Menang people that was widened for access to the newly established government farm and became known as Sleeman's Track. It is also recorded that this track from Albany town site to the rocks above Strawberry Hill site, which is known as a birthing place from Beauchamp Road side of the farm and out to the Lake Seppings. A bank was constructed below the Beauchamp Road boundary of the farm to stop stormwater runoff and its obstruction of the tract. It is first known obstruction of the track by settlers. Strawberry Hill at Barmup holds a unique place in the history of Western Australia as it's the first property to be vested in the National Trust after its formation in 1959. Strawberry Hill was opened to the public in 1966 and has been managed by the National Trust as a public accessible heritage site. Currently, 38 volunteers keep Strawberry Hill at Barmup maintained and open to the public. It's a popular and important site offering a welcoming, stimulating and attractive environment. Since the new visitors hub was completed in 2020, additional serious risks have been identified that need to be addressed at this property in relation to the conditions of the historical buildings, the collection of the movable objects within the building, health and safety for visitors and universal access. A recent review identified issues with the arrival experience and traffic management at the property, which include potential confusion over the points of entry off busy road Middleton Beach. The front fence is not in good condition and has been criticised on its aesthetics grounds. There is no separate entry for pedestrians and cyclists from Middleton Beach Road. Paved surfaces in the car park of Middleton Beach are in poor condition with many potholes. Timber curbing in the car park of Middleton Road has rotted away, making it very unsafe for visitors. Additional problems identified within the site include paved surfaces, inadequate toilet facilities in the form of 2 toilets housed in a transportable at the rear of the site, which is nearing its end of life. The grade of the ramp leading up to the facility is non-compliant in terms of universal access. Moisture egress in the 1936 main house is significant risk to the house. Recent data showed the high subsurface water levels in the north and east of the main house and very high humidity levels and mould inside. The house is cracking in various places and some walls are starting to lean. The exterior render on the 1835 workers' cottages is failing in sections, posing a risk to its original abode. There is a problem with both the historical building in the relation to stormwater disposal and inadequate gutters and pipes. A collection preservation needs assessment completed in 2023 found that the historical building at Strawberry Hill are in varying states of deterioration, which is causing risk to the collection through exposure to inappropriate and fluctuating climate conditions and all over potential for physical damage through full and partial collapse. Users of Strawberry Hill Farm have provided some following remarks to my office as feedback. The pathway to the house is feeling pretty dodgy. The car park is a disgrace and full of puddles after it rains. How are we meant to show off this wonderful place when the house is falling apart? The path through the Beauchamp Street is an accident waiting to happen. Having just one disabled parking bay is not good enough. Strawberry Hill has 38 volunteers, including 10 garden volunteers, who do an amazing job keeping the gardens and grounds looking beautiful. Judy started as a volunteer coordinator in 2017 and is now the caretaker of Strawberry Hill. Judy loves going to work each day with her dedicated team of volunteers who take so much pride in their work. David is one of the garden volunteers who started at the farm 2 years ago. He has fond memories of family visits to the farm when he was a child. He was motivated to become a volunteer because of those experiences and the connections that he has with lots of locals. Minister, as you know, I'm a born and bred Albany girl and have very fond memories of school excursions to the farm. We would walk from my school at Spencer Park to learn and experience the history and walk those tracks that the Menang Noongar people would have walked. I have fond memories of having Devonshire tea in the tea rooms, and when I visited the farm last year, when a volunteer asked me to go and have a look with them, it was disturbing to see the cracks and water buckets scattered throughout this historic building. My office is advised that most cracks in the house have appeared over the last 10 years and are a serious problem that need to be fixed. Mould is also becoming a serious problem which is not helped by the drainage problems caused by the runoff. I can confirm that locals love this site, with many using the grounds as part of their early morning walking exercise regime. The farm can now not host many events on sites due to the poor conditions of the path and car park. The car park also needs to be expanded to increase its capacity as it is too small. Minister, my constituents have made their position very clear that they want to see urgent repairs to Strawberry Hill. Can you please update the House as to the status of Strawberry Hill Farm in Albany?
Thank you.
Thank you very much to the member for Albany. I'm very passionate.
The arts.
And also heritage.
And heritage.
Because this matter is also a heritage matter.
Okay.
Thank you to the member for Albany for a passionate plea. A very important example of how grievances should be used, because the member for Albany has highlighted not only the very significant importance of Strawberry Hill Farm to the state's heritage, but also, of course, alluded to what I think is a very, very important element of Strawberry Hill Farm, and that is, of course, the importance of the site prior to the farm being established by the Menang people. The Menang people, as the member for Albany highlighted, the site where the Strawberry Hill Farm is now was also a very important place for the Menang people. A meeting place and an important place for them. And of course, over the last 150 plus years, the site, when it was established as a farm, the state's first, as the member highlighted correctly, the state's first farmland or farm in the when there was colonial settlement. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this grievance is important. The first is, of course, that we are rapidly approaching two significant dates that we will acknowledge appropriately in the state's history. One is 2026, when we saw, of course, from a colonial perspective, the establishment of the then town site of Albany. And of course then later in this decade, 2029, when the state will acknowledge the 200 years since of colonial establishment. So the importance of our significant heritage assets like Strawberry Hill Farm become more greatly enhanced. And that's why I'm pleased you've raised this grievance. I, as you know, visited Strawberry Hill. You and I went down there, or were there in February this year, where we were able to have a look at the site. And I think the reality is, despite the tremendous efforts by both the National Trust of Western Australia, who are of course custodians of that site, and those magnificent volunteers, the 30 plus volunteers as you mentioned, the need for urgent action is now before us. The building is very old. It is a remarkable example of colonial buildings, including, of course, the imposing two-storey dwelling that was the old farm homestead. I was able to, with Julian Donaldson, the CEO of Strawberry Farm, also inspect the various challenges that now face that structure across that precinct, including the cracking in the two-storey building, the water, the impact of water egress on the foundations, the sloping, the fact that the site slopes from the into the foundations, if you like, of the building. Also the issues around access, which are very concerning for me, because we want more people to experience and learn from that place by visiting it. So those pathway approaches, the car park, and even how the farm addresses the main road that it fronts onto are all very, very important issues. Now, as a result of your extremely strong advocacy, we have, the Trust has done some work in assessing what needs to be done. It is extensive work. And it will include addressing, or the need to address, a range of structural matters, a range of conservation matters, addressing issues around perhaps in the past when mortar, for example, was replaced, that those practices would not be the practices now for modern heritage or the modern approach to heritage buildings of that structure and that nature. Issues around roofing, issues around ensuring the buildings are not only safe, but of course can welcome more visitors. I am impressed with your grievance, and so I will be having conversations directly with the National Trust about what is required for remediation and for the works that will be required, and of course we'll be seeking support for those works to be funded. It is important, as I said, that we not only ensure that this very significant heritage site is safe and welcoming to visitors, but it also has great potential to deliver some tremendous outcomes for learning, for cultural experiences, and for tourism. And as we approach 2026, I am very, very keen that that structure, that important heritage asset, is able to welcome visitors even more than it's had in the past. So I want to thank you for that. I do want to also just very briefly highlight I was in Geraldton, and so this may give you some hope. But I was in Geraldton only last week, where we announced $7.6 million towards the conservation works at the old Victoria, the Victorian buildings there, the Victorian Centre, which was the old hospital in Geraldton. And again, similar to Strawberry Farm, a significant heritage site. The materials used are similar, and we need to fix these. So I thank you very much for your grievance, and assure you that I will put my attention to it forthwith.